and action, and welcome everybody. This is PnP Weekly, episode 172. It is 27th of June 2022. It is less than 6 months to Christmas. Woohoo! So my name is Vesa Juvonen. Haha. Get your presents forth early. So my name is Vesa Juvonen. I work as a product manager in Microsoft 365 platform areas, and with me as a co-host is Waldek.
Hi everybody, my name is Waldek Mastykarz and I am Cloud Developer Advocate for Microsoft 365 and Microsoft.
There we go. In PnP Weekly, I always talk about the latest in the Microsoft 365, focusing all up, but a bit more maybe on the platform side of the things. Well, we do focus on a bit more on the platform side of the thing. But we're highly interested in all of the changes, because if you're a good developer, you actually know how out-of-the-box features are working, and you actually know what's the possible things. Is that a definition of a good developer? Why are you looking like me like that?
No, I'm like
talking in the wrong language.
You're like good developers, bad developers. Because like so you're trying to say that they're bad developers, right? Like
of course.
Like we do our best and we do our best to stay on top, and sometimes we don't stay on top.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
This is exactly why we are here, to help everybody stay on top of everything that is new and relevant in building apps for Microsoft 365.
That's why you're a cloud advocate and I'm just an engineering dude. So.
And you're not?
Anyway, today we'll have Beau Cameron joining us. He works for DMI and has been around for quite a long time as an MVP and also part of the community MVP crew, helping us on coordinating things. So we're going to talk a bit about his contribution, career development, all of the things what he does nowadays. So really nice discussion, which we haven't yet recorded as we're recording this. So it's going to be awesome. Anyway, let's jump on that interview. It makes no sense whatsoever. It's Monday, so let's jump on that interview, and we'll come back on the articles right after. So, welcome, Beau Cameron, joining on the PnP Weekly, episode 172. You're finally 72. You're finally here. There's a bit of a story behind of that, right?
It took us eight years to get you on the show, yeah.
I've just been so busy, and it's been hard to make time. But no, actually, I just never got the invite. And Waldek just says it's lost in the mail, but I don't know.
Yeah, I changed emails, and then you replied, and I wasn't there anymore, and we got lost.
Could be. Whatever. I was driving in a tunnel, and then no, that doesn't work with the email.
What?
Anyway, good to have you on the show. So let's start with a quick intro. Can you do a quick intro as who you are and what do you do for a living?
Yeah, sure. My name is Beau Cameron. I'm a Microsoft MVP for Office Apps and Services. I'm a practice lead and enterprise architect at DMI. We're a consulting firm kind of for all types of technology, but focus on the Microsoft stack for our team. I get to work every day with the Chris Kent, which many of you probably know, and we kind of help steer the technical direction of our projects and try and enforce, better practices for our clients. Got started with SharePoint back in 2010, right out of college. It's kind of been the only technology that I've ever really known. I went to a job fair and they said, "Hey, we would like to hire you. We have this really cool product we are working on called BPause." And I was like, "All right, sounds interesting." And then I saw it and I said, "I don't know if there's a future here."
Forget about it.
Yeah.
But that was directly to cloud, right? You talked about BPause. Yeah. What's it? Business productivity? No.
Online services.
Online service. Yes, business productivity
online services.
That was correct. Microsoft 365 before the rename. So
right before it got good, and so I was like, I don't know. So I did SharePoint for about 2.5 years to start, and then I switched over to other content management systems. So I did Sitefinity and Sitecore as well for a couple of years, and then for some reason I said I miss SharePoint, so I went back to it. So I've been doing this since about 2010. I've been primarily a developer, but my kind of knowledge spans across that. So I do much on governance and compliance, as well as citizen dev stuff for Power Apps, Power Platform, some Dynamics work as well. So I kind of try to see myself as wearing many hats. I might not have very deep technical skills in everything, but I try to have kind of skills across every single one.
Understanding across the things. Now, you said that you're a SharePoint developer, but so does that mean that you're just legacy developer doing server-side thing and special? What is?
Yeah, I think that.
What are you talking about?
That definition has changed. Yeah, that
yes.
definition has changed. In many ways, right? Not just the technologies that we work in. We have shifted so far client side. But when you think like prehistorically, as I like to say, a SharePoint dev kind of did everything. They were doing development, they were doing farm configurations, they were doing search application setups, and so they were kind of doing everything back in the day, right? And so now I would say that I don't do much server-side dev unless it's API work. And so, yeah, I've been sticking with the kind of React side of things. Kind of during the mid 2010s, we were all on the Angular train. So I was doing much of that as well during the early 2012, 13, 14 or so. Yeah.
And on the development, so just as you're working with the SharePoint framework, obviously, any thoughts on how do you feel about SharePoint framework? Is that a good thing, bad thing? What's your feeling and take on it?
Yeah, sure. It's a really good thing, for sure. I think we can all agree being able to develop on modern platforms. Yeah. Being able to use modern tooling is a huge benefit. Just on the open source support for it is just something we had never had before. And then two, I would just say for people who might be concerned about trying to get into this space, it actually sets you up well if SharePoint's not going to be something you are going to do 10 years after, right? It gives you a skill set that you can go work on modern web development with any other company, right? SharePoint now is just an API, and the development space that we develop in is kind of cross-platform.
Yeah, which is finally we are getting there. Finally. Now what's actually interesting, if you think about the prehistorical thing, which always reminds me on like the T-Rex dinosaurs, as we are. Yeah, anyway. But we are seeing certain products in Microsoft to switch back to that direction where they have their own proprietary way of doing programming and everything else. So, but it's part of this natural cycle of IT. It always moves in cycles. So basically, we see stuff come and go. We dinosaurs can kind of relate on that stuff, I guess, because we've seen situations to move across the side. But yeah, so what you're saying, I like SPFx because it doesn't lock you down on SharePoint framework or even the cloud or Microsoft 365 or Microsoft Cloud, because again, basic tooling and implementation styles are the same.
Yeah,
Waldek, you're thinking something.
You like SharePoint framework because it doesn't lock you in SharePoint framework. That's interesting. Elaborate on that, please.
Yeah, no. That's one way of kind of putting that, because again,
for
if you think
a Monday
about
afternoon, that's very deep.
Thank you. So sure, I'm one of the person responsible for shipping SharePoint framework, but it is actually, it's knowing the historical things. It's one of the big, let's say, things we're proud of is that it does not lock you in to the product or technology itself. It gives you tools and basic understanding of a broader ecosystem, which is great. So it's more flexible.
Yeah.
So
in a sense, it's just a very thin layer specific to SharePoint. Everything else is just React or JavaScript. Yep. Like there's like if you think back again, like going pre-history, like back in the days, you would have VS, you would have your own farm, you would need tooling, and like whatever you learned, like the only thing you could carry over was C#, and even then you could say, well, if you have experience kind of in the ASP.NET space, it's kind of the same thing because there are user controls and it's kind of the same thing. But I recall like the first thing that I got when I go to the Microsoft space, like I skipped the ASP.NET. When ASP.NET became a thing, I was doing PHP, right? So I didn't have that experience. So like my first exposure to ASP.NET was on MOS, right? So I started building web
SharePoint.
And yes, Microsoft Office SharePoint Server 2007.
Yes.
Right. So that was my first experience with that. And then at some point, I would, because there was like nothing else to do, so I would get to work on an ASP.NET site. And I was like, suddenly I had to worry about permission management, user management, like the auth providers, navigation providers. Like, why? Like, why is that? Well, because it's ASP.NET. Like, there's nothing, like you build the whole app from scratch. And like that made me appreciate SharePoint so much more, because you get all of that in place. Like you don't need to reinvent the wheel. And it's like, yeah, how people will authenticate to your app. And when they do, permission, like what can they see? And you need to trim all of that. And you need to, it's like, that's in any way relevant to the app I'm trying to build and problem I want to solve. And like fast forward now today, still have the same thing where imagine you want to build an app. You want to build an app for work, right? You have a problem to solve, whether that's submitting expenses or something else. Well, you can roll up your sleeves, take React, Next, Angular, whatever thing you want to do, and build the app. What is the first thing you want to do? Auth. And when people are in your app, what can they see? The same problems we used to solve way back when. Whereas you think, hey, we're kind of in this Microsoft ecosystem as a company. Why not tap into that? Why not get all these things already available to us? AAD, Microsoft Identity, permission management. Like get all of that for free and focus on building your app. Focus on solving the problem you actually have, as opposed to, oh yeah, we need to let people to authenticate, and for that we need to have user management and password management and MFA support, password resets, and you're like 5 weeks down the road and you haven't even built the actual app, right?
Yeah, I mean that's something that I think will always exist. I mean we're going through it now, where if you're building this application that might run in Teams, well, you got opt into Teams if you're going to do a Teams app, but what if all the services that you call are Okta services or something else? Like then you still have to do auth. Like that will always exist. But I also don't know how truthful this is, but I think this is why, at least in my experience, where provider hosted add-ins were at least more successful than I think they maybe should have been, just because the auth piece was tied into it. Like you build your site and the auth is there and you're like, everything's good, I can just work, right? Like that. People like move that way, or at least I did, just because I didn't have to write any code. I didn't have to use OpenID. I didn't have to do anything. I just started the app and built it.
Yeah, auth isn't fun.
No,
auth isn't fun, and the fact that we rarely even remember that there's an Azure AD nowadays behind the scenes, making everything possible. The fact that I'm watching this and it signs me in and I open up things and everything is authenticated and the Windows is authenticated with my identity, it's just amazing. But behind the scenes, there's a lot of, let's say, technical
moving
innovation
parts
and automation and all of that's happening. So we are having interesting engineering also challenges. Well, this relates on what we were just saying, but related on the authentication. So if a customer or partner has their authentication model using then a non-Azure AD, and then you're like, oh, how do we now do this stuff? So it is certainly an interesting challenge. Pigeons, yes.
Sea turtles.
Pigeons. Yes. In certain countries, maybe. Yes. Okay.
Anyways, another thing, Beau, I wanted to ask you about, because like you said, you would start SharePoint development in 2010. Fast forward now, many things have changed. How did you experience the change, right? Because like you didn't have the React NPM node experience. Like all of that was new when it became a reality in SPFx. So what was your first reaction, if you recall, the moment you woke up and we moved the cheese?
Yeah, so for me, it was actually pretty easy. So that interim change when I went to Sitefinity, Sitecore, in that period, I was also just doing client-side dev. So the company that I worked for, we did Angular, we did Breeze, which not many folks talk about anymore, but that was kind of an ORM for client side, like the entity EF of client side. So I did that. So I had some experience into it. And then when I came back to SharePoint, it was around the time when 2013 was kind of becoming really popular and content search web parts became a thing. And so JavaScript was like the forefront of SharePoint dev at that time because everyone was doing display templates. And so more people got familiar with that. I did as well. And so the transition to the new tooling for me wasn't a drastic change. That's not to say that's not what everyone feels. So I spend a lot of time in the forums. I'm on Reddit, Facebook groups, and there is a huge issue of people trying to get from their classic SharePoint dev skills or jQuery development in script editor web parts to really a enterprise-like development, right, where deployments are controlled, where code is standardized, which has been a very difficult transition for many SharePoint developers today.
Yeah. What would be the tips related on doing that, by the way? How did you do that? How did you transition, or what would be the things what you would recommend people to do?
Yeah. So, well, first, I always say when you look at SharePoint framework, you see all these things. You see NPM, you see gulp, and you get concerned at the beginning before you even start. It's like, I don't know what these things are. So I just say, forget all those things. Like, you don't need to know those things really to be a successful developer. As you get into more advanced scenarios, yeah, you can do some really cool stuff with custom build tasks and things like that. But really focus on what you want to build. And so that would be the language itself. Don't view SPFx as this kind of big thing that is complex. Think of it as just a bootstrapper to your existing code. So take something you have built before, something in jQuery, and then try and just port that over. Take a SPFx web part, start it up, and just kind of move your code over. There are lots of people out there who have examples and tutorials, like Mark Rackley, who was a big proponent of that kind of jQuery style development, who has examples of how to do it. But take it slow. Don't bite off more than you can chew. And two, just like read the tutorials. There are so many people who just skip past it, and then they don't have the right node environment. They don't have the right NPM version. So really just take it slow, step by step, and then don't get kind of concerned with all the other ancillary parts of the build frame. Just like know that those exist and just work on the solution itself. Yeah,
one step at a time. So which is good. So absolutely.
Another comparison that I wanted to draw is in the past, like 2010, 13 on-prem development. Like, you wanted to build things for SharePoint, that was the only way to do it. You had to be on Windows, VS, C#. That was it. And that was kind of the gamut of choice you had. Sure, you could have bring your controls, but that was kind of about the amount of freedom you had. Fast forward to today, you can use anything you really want.
Yeah.
Right. So with that, you kind of get, well, it's cool because it's freedom. You can be on Windows, Mac, Linux, whatever. You can use any editor, whatever you want. But what do you choose, right? Because like in a world where you can choose anything, what is the right choice? And is the right choice of today the right choice of tomorrow? And are you keep second guessing yourself, like, oh crap, there's another new popular thing and it's going through the roof and we're not on that. Do we need to update everything? How do you experience that?
So I'll preface this with, I don't know anything about Macs. I cannot use Mac OS. I don't use Linux. I've been Windows since I was born. And so I'm familiar with that ecosystem itself, but I've also found that that's actually been a detriment to modern web development. When you go look at stuff on GitHub for certain frameworks or Gulp, whatever, the subsystems behind all of those are developers who use Mac or Linux, and things you can do there, you just can't do on Windows. So some of the samples there for configuring like the Linux subsystem for Windows, things we can't do, but they could just do on Linux. So like, why can't I do these things, and so that's been difficult. I hope Microsoft tries to keep up with some of the things that Linux and Mac OS can do, or iOS can do in that regard, because I think a lot of the modern frameworks out there, it's a communities of non-Windows developers.
Yeah. I think that's more natural. I think when you come from an enterprise development side, then sure, there's a lot of Windows machines being used. But when you come from the other side, quite often it's more Macs and Linux computers for sure. Waldek, you're using a Mac. Why are you using a Mac?
Because I can. Because since I started using Mac, I don't know how many years ago, 7, 8, probably more. Not a single blue screen, and you have no idea. It was like, how can you not have? Well, that's a Mac for you, right? And sure, yeah. there are quirks like, well, the OneDrive app on Mac isn't really as good as it is on Windows, and maybe Office isn't really as smooth. Like, yes, you're right, and yet I'm not having a single problem with my Mac. So,
yeah,
if that's the price that I am away, that I have to pay for it, plus NPM and Node on Mac are so much faster than they are on Windows.
Well, that's true.
Right,
yeah,
so like it levels off.
Yeah, which is why like WSL on Windows is really nice, because you can do a npm install and it takes seconds versus it takes 7 minutes to set up your first SPFx project, right?
Yeah.
But I will give credit where credit's due. Windows has become a lot more stable than it used to. Like, I can't remember the last time I had a blue screen of death on my screen, right? So props to
I had one last week and another one the week before. It was like every single week, like on one of the calls, like he
all of a sudden
he is on a phone, like sorry, blue.
Well, my anecdotes aren't facts, so that's
it's just holding it wrong. So he's holding it wrong. It's him. It's not
true.
Windows. It's him.
I guess it's me. Now there's two things what I wanted to also talk about with you, but before we go to the community side, and let's touch that a bit. What the community? Why are you active in community? What are you doing there? You relatively recently, a year ago, right, moved to the mountains.
2 years.
2 years. Okay. Well, time flies when you're having fun. I remember when you were moving because we had a discussion on it. Can you talk about a bit on
last year?
2 years.
Hey, 2020 didn't exist, so it's okay. One year is fine. Yeah.
Exactly. So, but you basically made the choice of moving to mountains in a bit of an isolated location. So why is that? What's with that decision? So,
well, I think 2020 for everyone, which was when I moved, was a difficult year just in general. People started to move out. I grew up in a really small town, and I enjoy this kind of this sense of community of the people around you. We all have some sense for the greater good of one another. And I moved out to Denver actually about 6 years ago, to North Denver. And it was great. I lived in a good place, but traffic is really tough. There's people kind of all around you. And, we kind of had this calling of like, let's kind of break out a bit, get away from the city, move to a place that, is just less congested, which was primarily the biggest issue for us. So we moved out here. We moved to a town called Evergreen, which is about 40 minutes west of Denver. It's a small little mountain town. I live so Denver's at about 5,500 feet, whatever that is in metric. And then
divided by 3.
I live at 9,000 feet. So I'm, another half mile to 3/4 up from Denver. So I'm fairly high up, which has had its own set of challenges. When I first moved in, we didn't have internet for 3 or 4 weeks. So that was a struggle. We still kind of have internet here. It's not super fast. It's not very reliable. Neither is our electricity, but it's nice up here. It's quiet. There's elk and deer and bears that are kind of just roaming around, which has been really cool to experience every single day. So it's been kind of a mental release for us, where the kind of fast, busy pace of Denver is kind of gone now. So it's been nice, kind of just mentally to break away from that.
Are you looking into staying there then for unknown in the future as well, or is this just an experiment? So.
Oh no, yeah, we love it here. I don't see myself moving to an urban area. We might move deeper out into the woods than we are in the future, but right now we really like it out here. The views are nice, and it's just calm and serene most of the time. So
that's not jealous, not jealous
at all. That's actually something which you keep on hearing with the people who have done this move from the city and urban areas to the countryside, and then they're like, okay, we're going to stay here, we're never going to go back. That's just for jobs and let's say careers where you can do that. That's great. Of course, there are situations where you cannot do that, but nowadays people are a bit more flexible with the working and everything else. So
some people are, right?
Yeah, true.
The opposite is also true. So there are people who have moved out and then got kind of shocked by the experience, right? If you aren't okay with your electricity going out and being out for any number of days, it's probably not a place for you to live. If you're okay with not having the town come and plow your road, it's probably not a place that you want to live. So we don't have all the same amenities that you get when you're in an urban area, right? We have to plow our own roads out here. We get 14 feet of snow in the wintertime. So that's a lot of snow that you have to take care of and put somewhere.
How about ordering a pizza?
Yeah, we don't get delivery up where I am. If you're closer towards like the main town, you can, but up here, you can't get delivery. It's even hard. Like we had built our deck and did some house stuff. You might have a sales guy come out and like give you a quote, but then they won't come back. So you can't get work done in the winter time because it's just really dangerous. I mean, there's like the road's not great. And it's very hard to get people to consistently want to come up here and work on your properties because the road up here is not a great road to bring a big truck, and you can't even fit large trucks up here. So like if your truck is larger than say 16 feet, which is not very big, you can get down my driveway, but you won't be able to get back out on the road in the direction that you want to go, and there's no place to turn around. So that's been a change.
Wow.
So how do you deal with the darkness on winter time? Because summertime is different. Now it's summertime in the northern hemisphere, and of course, Helsinki is Finland is a good example as well. That where on summertime sun just doesn't go down, and basically it's awesome. On winter time, dark.
Yeah. So I feel like I've experienced Finland just from living on the East Coast here. So. It's not true, but it's just I grew up in Vermont, which is in the northeast of the U.S. And winters are brutal, like cold. I was telling someone yesterday or the day before, it's a different kind of cold, right? It's a cold that comes from the inside out, like your bones hurt first, and then you're like, wow, I'm really cold, right? So also in the wintertime there, it's basically gray from October to April. So it feels dark. You don't really see the sun much. It does come up, but you just don't see it often. So we actually moved west. One of the number one reasons was it was just depressing in Vermont. It was just cold and dark. Out here, it's been quoted as 300 days of sun here. So we get lots of sun every single day, even in the winter time. So cool. If we get short periods of sun throughout hours, right? But the sun's always there. There are less clouds than say the East Coast. So you don't feel like you're missing the sun in the wintertime. You actually feel, especially here, like you're in a wonderland. We just have trees covered, like pine trees covered in snow, and the sun's coming through. It's just glistening everywhere. So it's kind of magical in some sense.
That's where Narnia is. Now we know it.
The most important part, though, have you seen stars? Because if there's one thing that you move, if you're big from a big city, well, you will never see stars because of lights, right? So when you moved out, have you seen stars? Actually, with naked eye, you look up, hey, stars.
Absolutely, I can see stars every single night from my deck. It's
Not
pretty
jealous.
cool here. So
Not jealous.
we have the city here, Denver, in my house up here, and at night you can kind of see the lights from Denver, but you also have the other side, which is all mountains. So you feel like you're in between the modern world of things, hustle and bustle, and then you're just in this community of like mountain towns and trees, and it's a really cool experience to be able to at night see all the stars, but also see all the cars and all the lights miles away. It's pretty neat.
Cool. Now we know that we need to stop pretty soon, but I wanted to still talk a bit about the community. I actually touched the community topic more in where you're living and that community, but you're actually active on the community side as well. So you're part of our MVP crew helping on the Microsoft 365 platform community side. Why is that? What do you gain out of the community? Why are you doing that? You're basically giving away your expertise for free.
Yeah, and that's it's a pretty simple answer, actually. So to me, it's really just giving back. So when I first started SharePoint in 2010, I was like everyone else. I don't know how to even get started. I don't know what to read. I don't know what to look for. I can't build things out. And one thing that's been great about the SharePoint community is that it's kind of been around since the beginning, and there's always been people throughout time that have given their time and expertise to help others. So when I was, young, looking for help, there were people out there, right? There were people still out there. Bob German is one of those guys who I've always looked up to. He has helped me tremendously early in my career. And so I always felt like there are plenty, like I was that person, and there's plenty more like me that are going through that same exact thing. So I want to give back to them as much as possible. The second part is that you guys touched on with Gautam was, how do you keep up with everything that changes? Well, the easiest thing to keep up with how things change is just to be on every single SharePoint forum that exists, because people will ask many questions. And if I know it, I will answer it. And if I don't, I'll go look it up and then answer it. So I get to learn constantly every day just by listening to what other people are going through. So it does benefit me quite a bit just to see, oh, I have not even looked into that once. Let me look into it.
How do you deal with the time and allocation on it? So how do you book time on the community side and you do work on that, or is it just something what you naturally do as part of their day-to-day work?
It's just naturally part of my day. So if I'm going to, take a break for 15 minutes to go get lunch or something, I'll go check the SharePoint group for Facebook and then see if I could answer any questions there during that time. And so I'm basically on there throughout the day. I try and answer, 20, 40 questions every single day just to try and help out across different stacks. So I'm on Reddit, where we have about 25,000 people there. My Facebook group, it's a SharePoint developer admin group, has about 25,000 as well. We also have a Discord now for the Reddit group. So if someone wants to just ask questions in live chat, they can do it too. And so we could provide links for it too, because there's a lot of great resources in there, lots of MVPs as well who are just helping out across the entire stack, from Power Apps development, administration, development, just SharePoint Online, OneDrive. So that's a great resource as well.
That was the thing what I was about to ask. What are the top 3 resources for you? And let's get the links, of course, after the call on the notes. But what would be the top 3 or top 5 things? How do you keep up? What is the tips for the other ones who are looking around to do what you do?
So for me, it's obviously the ones I'm most active in. But our Facebook group is called SharePoint Admin and Developers. It's a really active group. Tons of people post every single day. Lots of help as well. Just even non-MVP community people just want to help out. Reddit group is really nice as well. So the sub is just /r/SharePoint. It's run by Trevor Seward. We have lots of, if you want admin help, that's a really great place for it. Some really strong admins there for farm topologies, infrastructure, those types of things. And then our new Discord group has just kind of been blowing up fast. And that's a great way to just get help fairly quick, because you could ask a question and someone might answer within 10 seconds. So those are my top 3. We can link them all, but I highly recommend, if you aren't in them, to join those groups.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really good. Let's put them in the notes of the blog. Now, from a timing perspective, we promised for Waldek that we will free him right now. So
yes, exactly now. So on that bombshell, see ya.
But thank you, Beau, for joining us, and we'll get you certainly back on the show at some point whenever we are
earlier than on episode 344.
Yeah, exactly. I guess we were in season 6 now. I don't know, somewhere around that, but
some season.
Okay. Some season. We don't count seasons. Yeah, math is so hard. But thank you, Beau, for joining. Really, really good discussion. Good to catch up. And thank you for all of the active contributions in the community side, because again, community and MVPs are really the fuel and on the engine, which basically grows everything, and helping each other to grow actually makes you feel better as well. So that's why I ended up doing what I do around communities as well. So, but thank you, Beau. Thank you, Waldek. And I guess that's it. We're going to jump on the weekly articles right after this, which we actually recorded before this interview. But anyway, so you know how it is. But thank you, Beau.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
You.
It was great
Have
to be on the show. All right. Bye.
Thank you. Cheers. Excellent. Thank you, Beau, for that discussion. And I'm going to spill the beans. We're recording this before the record discussion, so we don't actually know how well the discussion
went. This was the best interview ever. Thank you so much, Beau, for your insights, for your journey, for talking about us, talking to us about everything you've done and what's top of your mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Beau. Really, really good to catch up as well. So really, really good. Anyway, let's jump on the articles this week. So we have a few of them to go through. Just pinpointing some of the articles which have been released around Microsoft 365 within the past week. Now, we'll start with the Microsoft 365 blog, where we actually have 2 really interesting articles since last time we recorded. So first one was around Microsoft Loop components, so extending capabilities in Microsoft Teams and Outlook, and basically kind of a summary and a reminder and also update on the latest capabilities on the Loop components, which can be added on the discussion, for example, in Teams, and you can send them in emails and so on, and you can basically collaborate on real time in those components with your colleagues, and that's actually really, really cool. The easiest way to do this is for sure is using Teams and basically send and invite another person to actually collaborate with you. And you can, of course, pin this discussion to the chat, so it will be there for everybody to find and all of that. So really, really cool stuff. We use this all the time internally. The second one was about privacy changes and API support in Microsoft usage reports, which is really, really cool.
Exactly. Well, it is cool. It is something that some companies require, right? So the idea was that in the past, a while back already, we introduced the ability to have usage report in Microsoft 365 so that you can track how different features of Microsoft 365 are used within your company. Well, the caveat of that is that these reports would expose the ID of the group, and with that, you would be able to identify which areas and so forth and so on. Like you could infer personal data. So now the companies are in control, where they can choose to opt out of that and have reports being anonymized. So you will see the usage still, but you will not know in which area exactly, in which group, and so forth and so on. Like all of the IDs will be erased. Right. So, and here I think we even, so here we even show that it's even based to a user, right? Yep. So the idea is that we will replace that with random keys so that you will not be able to track it back to a person. So this is a great way for you to control the access to data and insights in your org.
Yeah, Yeah, this is, by the way, some small insights on how things works internally in Microsoft. Of course, we have a lot of metrics and data, but that's how the information is shown for us as well when you're accessing the information in the internal report. So you do not know who the person is because it's meaningless. And we're looking always for usage patterns and behaviors. I have to call out, this was good experience. So zoom icon, click it. Zoom in, and you get a smaller picture. What says, good job. Anyway, so
less is more. I don't know what you're talking about.
That's true.
Literally in this case.
Yes. On the SharePoint blog, Nicole Woon had a new blog post. She's a PM, awesome PM on the site templates and site creation side of the side of the OneDrive and SharePoint engineering, and she works with Kathy Du and Dave and many other people. But she's responsible of the UX side of the creation of a template, and she has shared an update related on out-of-the-box templates which are available. So more and more we see new templates be available as a starting point, as an inspiration starting point for creating content in the SharePoint online, and of course you can embed this in Teams and all of that stuff. So it's just a good set of new content available, and other updates in there as well. Really, really cool. Now, Power Platform had something new related on developer tools.
Exactly. So there's a new version of Power Platform developer tools with new features, single sign-on, support for additional clouds, support for additional packages, formats, and so forth and so on. So if you use these tools, if you use developer tools on Power Platform, check out this new version because it might have features that you always wanted to have.
Yep, absolutely. It's good to see the let's say the frequency or the consistency with the communications with the monthly basis and all of that. So communication. So super important thing. Now, announcements. Big announcement actually from our side. Well, at least from my side because I wrote the blog post. So SharePoint Framework 1.15 is out with updates for Viva Connection, Microsoft Teams, and SharePoint Online. So not for SharePoint on-prem because 1.15 is for SharePoint Online and Teams and Viva Connection. So a lot of new updates. The probably the most meaningful ones or important ones are the field edit and list library forms. So what does it? New view and edit forms, overriding support. And yes, you will be redirected to another page. We're looking into potentially have the panel way of doing that. Node.js 16 support, quite important as well. So people can stay up to date on the latest LTS version of the node, and a lot of other updates there as well. So check out the release note for all of the notes for all of the details. And we relatively recently recorded a video with Alex Terentiev, who used to be an MVP, nowadays in charge of some of these features. And he basically enabled the custom form extensibility. And so we recorded a video on that. Now, on our community blog,
side, yes.
Yes, on there we have few updates.
Yes, we have a new exciting article from Lee Ford. Lee is one of our MVPs. Yep. And in this article, he talks about, sorry?
From UK. So just
yes,
calling it out.
He is from the UK.
I'm just, you know, having a discussion with you as we're chit-chatting.
Excellent.
Don't mind me, I'm just interrupting you.
In this article, he writes about how you can manage Teams devices using the Microsoft Graph, right? So the Microsoft Graph is the API to get data and insights on Microsoft 365, but also to manage some of the settings that you have in Microsoft 365. In this case, if you have a requirement to manage devices for Teams in Microsoft 365, Microsoft Graph is the way to go, and this article is a great place to start.
Absolutely, really cool stuff. Now, so Eli Schei had a blog post as a collection of resources for Microsoft 365 developers. So good summary blog post related on all of the different things, what is actually happening. So what are the YouTube channels, what are the podcasts, what are the Twitter channels and things to follow. We are even in here. Thank you, Eli. Like we should be in here, but
Thank you. You can just say thank you.
I can just say thank you. That's fine. Yes. Cool. But a lot of new resources, well, not new resources, but links and resources available on Microsoft 365 platform. Really cool stuff. Thank you, Eli, on that one. Then we had a Power Automate stuff. Do we have a Power Automate? Yes, we do.
Yeah, exactly. So this one is about automate creating a table. So we're creating a table, we're configuring it, we're installing data gateway, and then we're doing inserting data to it. Yeah, so I think this is about
adding data,
basically creating table and filling it with data.
Yep.
Yeah, excellent article.
Good. Thank you, Rachel, on that one. We also had an update from Luisa Fries. This is kind of a reference blog post which we will promote as part of our upcoming promos on all of the samples and everything else which the community has been done, which is awesome. So we're great that Luisa is going to write this kind of a We Love Community summary on all of the things what we do. So what the platform community is doing, so people understand, let's say, the scale, because every now and then people confuse the terms and what's happening and all of the things. So it's good to have a reference point for what's available and what's it's for the community to actually get involved in here. Really, really cool stuff. Thank you, Luisa, on that one. Then CLI had a new version.
Yes, so following our monthly release, and actually a bit earlier this time around, we released new version of CLI for Microsoft 365, version V 5.4.
Yep.
And one of the major updates is support for upgrading SharePoint framework projects to the newly released version 1.15, right? So it's always that when we release new version of SPFx, we also want you to be able to benefit from that as quickly and easily as you can. And to that point, we also update CLI for Microsoft 365 with the ability to upgrade your existing apps from whatever version of SPFx you might have to the latest version, so that you benefit from new features, but also the new toolchain. Like if there's one thing that is, a constant in the open source space is change. Toolchain evolves. We have new version of Node, new version of TypeScript, React, and Control, and so forth and so on. And if you use an older version of SPFx, you might not be able to use that, right? So moving on to the latest version of SPFx give you the benefit. Like even if you have an app that doesn't use any of the new features in SPFx, you benefit from the latest version of toolchain on which it runs, right? Sure. And along with that, we have a few other additions, updates. So definitely check it out if you work with SPFx or you're looking for a tool to manage your M365 tenant on any platform, any OS, any shell.
Yep. Thank you for that one. Really, really cool. And just to call out, it's an action plan which the tool is providing. It is not doing the transformation of the project automatically, because
we could
do that potentially, but we don't want to. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so then there's a two blog posts from Mark D. Anderson. So first of all, one is replace that classic SharePoint root site. So by default, if you have been having a Microsoft 365 tenant for a long time, most likely a root time is actually still the classic. So you can certainly modernize that, or you can flip the root site to be another site to be in the root. Flip. Another site to be in the root of the tenant. Now, why would it matter? Quite often, actually, the condoso.microsoft.com to become condoso.sharepoint.com style address is the one where you have your global intranet and all of that. So you might want to actually modernize that to be in place. Again, could be a separate design for your tenant, but still. There's options on how to make that happen and how to do that. Good. And then Mark had another article.
Yes, it's about the missing site nav edit link and extraneous icons. And I guess that this is about Mark's adventure or experience where something around nav wasn't where you would expect it to be. And then he goes through it exactly what's wrong, what happened, and so forth and so on. And why isn't it there? And is there something you can do about it? So if you come across this, check out this article because it might give you the answers you need to fix this.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Cool to see the maintainer and community contributors, also the tag and the badges in here. By the way, anybody can get them who's contributing on our community stuff. So please sign up. Now, other updates, H2O, which is a open source community driven Fluent implementation. Fluent. Yes.
Fluent UI, yes.
Fluent UI implementation. And there's a CSS styled version, the core version, and then there's a React version led by Julie Turner. The React version had a 1.1 version coming out last week. So really, really cool stuff. These are super, 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 super cool and useful thing for, especially for, well, anything, any experience implementation in Microsoft 365. So really, really cool stuff. Then April had a new blog post, not new video.
Not new video. She had a new video, and we were looking at it, and it is a brand new video. And in this video, April talks about how can you change a Power App owner using Power Automate in under 10 minutes. And I wonder, is the video under 10 minutes, or is it the process of changing in under 10 minutes?
I guess it's the process of changing.
Imagine, well, I can imagine the whole flow will run like that instantly. So the video, the explanation, and you going to understand and going through the different steps, like that's going to take you 10 minutes, but the replacement itself is done instantly. So if you need to update, change Power Apps owners in a batch, probably, like I would imagine that is the use case, that is definitely a great way for you to go about it. Check it out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then Shane Young had a video related on Power Apps formula reference and 5 uncommon functions. So kind of explaining what are the functions doing in the Power Apps and how they behave and all of that. So in the same way as we're going to have functions in Excel, of course, there's function support in Power Apps and explaining how they do and how they actually work. Now, that's it for this week. So thank you, Beau Cameron, one more time, joining us on the discussion from the mountain cave. No, not a cave, not mountain area.
Stop digging.
Anyway, so anything specific on your side this week? Interesting stuff.
Planning is still very much in progress on our end. Microsoft is a big place. There are many parts of the org that are going through the latest plans, the latest updates, finalizing plans for the next half year. Other than that, it's T-minus 2 weeks roughly for 3 weeks for the vacation time. So trying to get as much of work as we can before I'm going to be gone for a few weeks. And other than that, business as usual. Recording, building code, creating content, getting out there to help people build apps for Microsoft 365. What about you? You shipped 115. What's
115 last week. Yeah, now we're kind of closing up 2 weeks before I go for a vacation for a few weeks. So basically closing up on things and planning and catching up on things. So nothing too special. It's slow period, so to say, because there's a lot of people taking time off in the Northern Hemisphere right now. So, but anyway, thanks for watching. Please remember PnP hashtag PnP Weekly in Twitter, so we know that what are you sharing. We're always interested on following up and covering what the community is building and writing and showing in their videos or blogs and so on. But thanks everybody for joining, and we'll be back for the last time in this season within a week. So then after that, there's going to be a small break.
Cool. That sounds so cool. In this season, like, wow, which season are we in actually?
I have no idea. Season number 6, 7, I don't know. So somewhere in this journey. But we'll be back for one more week before a summer break. But have a great rest of the week and stay healthy, and we'll be in touch.